welcome to episode 119 of Genn and Millie, where a Gen Xer and a millennial share the strength-based perspective through which they view the world. We are your hosts, Allison and Tess. If you joined us last time, and I sure hope you did,
and if you didn't, pause and go back.
I want to make a clarifying statement. One of the question prompts that Tess led was, what do you know to be true? And I think I answered with some kind of the, universe will provide cosmos sort of connectedness response. But I really wish I would have had an extra second to think about that question, because what I know to be true above anything else in the world is there is one Van Halen. And that is the Van Halen that was led by David Lee Roth. There are no other Van Halens. There are no other lead singers that should be recognized of Van Halen. So what do I know to be true, listeners, is there is one Van Halen, and that is the David Lee Roth Van Halen. Okay. That is how I'm going to tee us up today.
Okay.
As a reminder that we are going to be fun and lighthearted, as we should. I think Tess and I are both under a bit of stress.
A bit.
And I think it would be good for us to have a little bit more of a fun and engaging and playful Genn and Millie episode where we do what we do well, which is generate questions. I think these questions could be good for any of our listeners, whether you were chatting with a significant other, if you're chatting with a friend, if you're chatting with team members. Some of them maybe discern at your own caution as to whether or not you'd use them with your team. But I think these are some great questions, which were fueled by our last conversation regarding dating and generational differences. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Tess has much more experience with dating apps than Allison.
Just laughable that because it's relative to you, because I have such small experience in dating apps compared to most of my generation.
And I would say I have more experience with dating apps because I was on one once than most of the people that I know in my generation, because it just was not a thing for us. Learned a lot listening back to our last episode, and hope you did too. If not, I would say go there first before you listen into today's. But we had so much fun with those questions that I thought it might be fun for us to pull a few more. I would say some of these are kind of like get to know you, but I also thought, I'm just going to apologize for the dog that is not mine.
Not mine either, just for listeners who normally hear my dog. You probably will hear
I don't even know where this dog is coming from. Anyway, he's not in my space, but clearly nearby. These are questions that we feel like would be great prompts and conversation starters. And it might be good for you and I, Tess, even though we've known each other quite a while, to have questions that may lead to further and deeper dialogue and discovery. So I'm going to pause there for a second and ask you, did you listen back?
No.
Have you ever?
A few times.
I spot check.
No, I spot check. I don't know that I've ever listened back to one.
I would encourage you. I would encourage you, and I would encourage you to listen back to the last episode. It's humor. It's us, I think, at our best as far as how we respond and react to each other. But it is truly in the lens of strengths and in the lens of generational differences, super clear to spot and see.
I was probably one of the ones I would listen back to, least likely to listen back to, because I remember I just feel like I was broken out the whole time. I hate talking about my dating life. And I feel like I talked a lot about it. Like, we didn't just talk about dating differences. Like,
you did it very well.
Well, thank you.
You did it very well.
I'm just going to trust you.
So I'm going to start with these are coming from Very Well Mind, a random website that I found. I'm going to start with some of these tests. This would have been the second text that I sent you.
Yep.
So let's just go. I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
And then I'm going to choose 5 questions to throw your way.
Okay.
And then you can decide if you want me to answer the same questions or if you would like to choose 5 others.
love the options.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Tess, what is the most fun thing you've done recently?
Are these supposed to be more rapid fire?
Yes. Or, I don't know, if you were on a date, I would want you to think about it, but rapid fire is the goal today.
I know. Okay, I know they probably were. Here's where you can strike spot me, because my brain was like, okay, what do we mean by recent? Do we mean this past year, or do we mean this past week? Would it be sad to say this was the most, like, my brain went in a billion directions. Okay, but I'm just going to answer it. Sorry. I would say the most fun thing that I've done this last week is I hosted an impromptu game night. It started with brunch in the morning at a local place with a couple friends, and then they wanted to keep hanging out, and then we were like, okay, we got to go our separate ways to do things in the afternoon, but then we all came back together, and one person made dinner, and then we just, like, hung out, and it was just, like spontaneous hangout, which I feel like at my age and with my people, like, especially here, like, I don't always get the spontaneity of, like, you got to plan things weeks in advance to see each other, so that was super fun.
Love that. Okay, I'm going to try to choose questions that are going to be easier for you to answer. I didn't realize that one was going to be such a stretch.
It was not such a stretch. I just overthink things. Oh my gosh.
All right, from your gut, are you ready? Who's your celebrity crush?
Idris Elba.
That was quick. Goodness sakes. All right, these are
You
best
said
best trip you've ever taken.
Portugal with all my people.
Most embarrassing nickname you've ever had?
I haven't really had many nicknames at all. I think sometimes my dad used to call my siblings T1, T2, and T3. And when growing up, I was like, oh yeah, kind of cute because we all have T names. And later I'm like, oh my God, that's so dehumanizing to add a letter and a number to our name. I know it was out of love, but I'm like, that's kind of embarrassing to just be called a number.
Do you have a favorite word that you think is just delightful to say or hear?
I love when I hear by golly, because normally it's a phrase, not a word, but I feel like it's such a Midwestern, or maybe it's like a Minnesota, like by golly. Either that or like let me scoot right past you, because it's a total dog whistle for people from the Midwest when I'm in DC here. So I love to hear, like, the phrases and words that bring me the most joy are like Minnesota dog whistle phrases. And those two are perfect. When someone refers to something as a hot dish, that's another one.
So on the last episode, you used a phrase that I said. I never thought the day would come when I would hear Tess Starman say this phrase. However, today you go and continue to prove, like, by golly is not anything that I ever thought I would hear you say. So there we have it, folks. Was that 4 questions? 5? Math is hard.
I think that was 4.
Okay. From your gut, what's the most surprising fact that you have right up here in your noggin that blows people's minds? That you can just rattle off information, rattle off knowledge. What's the most surprising fact you know that blows people's minds?
Again, this is another really, really, really hard question. Probably not the most surprising, but the largest library in the world is the Library of Congress. And only because of their digital files, because of trademark and patents.
I'd say you answered that question wrong.
Okay. I was like, it's super fun, and I don't know that it's super surprising, but
all right.
It's the one that came to me.
Well done. Very well done. These are fun.
Okay, I want to ask you different ones because the pressure of, having to respond to them right away was a lot.
Even it up.
100%.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's your hidden talent?
Once a cheerleader, always a cheerleader. I can do a cartwheel.
Oh my gosh. Weirdest food combination you've ever tried that turned out to be surprisingly great?
Oh. Well, wine with anything. Like, wine with ice cream.
Wine with ice cream? Okay.
Wine and ice cream is surprisingly good.
Okay. Any particular kind of wine ice cream pairing that you would recommend for those who want to get their first foray?
I think you'd be surprised at the Ben and Jerry's. I think it's called Netflix and Chilled, and a cab.
Okay. Most bizarre dream you've ever had?
No. Just no. Nope. No thanks. I can choose to not answer.
Wow.
No.
Okay. I didn't know that was an option. Wow. Okay. How about most recent dream that is PG-13 or less that you can share?
I dream vividly lately, and one of the dreams that I consistently have that I think is kind of bizarre, but maybe it's more standard than not. But there seems to be a button that I have to push to get out of something or into something, and someone comes along and says, there's no button necessary. Like you just go. So I have kind of consistent dreams of like there's some apparatus that's blocking me from getting through a door, opening a window, turning something on, but it's actually not real. It's like constructed. Like I make things hard for myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Psychoanalyze. That's so
general
much.
theme. Yes.
What do you have a favorite word that you think is delightful to say or hear?
Oh, there's so many. Bliss is one of my favorite words. Anaranjado is one of my favorite words.
Okay, you're going into different languages.
Like I can just choose a bunch, but yes, there's a couple.
What kind of music do you like to listen to?
I'm going through a blues stage right now. A very, very interesting deep dive into both new and old, I would say bluesy. I call it soul. Yeah. I'm going through a soul period.
I love that. Okay, that's 5.
Great.
I wanted to end with that question because you're such a music person that I was very curious how you would describe what kind of music you like to listen to, because you like a little bit of everything, like rock, oldies. I'm in a season. You're very yeah. Okay.
And I also have playlists for every single given moment. I have a playlist for traveling called TT, Time Travel Time. I have a playlist called LAI, which is Love in the IRS, basically. Is part of that playlist. I have a playlist called Picture Painting that has 8 hours plus of music. I have a playlist for, most recently, I started a playlist for my friend Katie called Katie Babe. I have a playlist called Dinner that I like for just like making dinner. I have a playlist that's supposed to help me cry. That's the French phrase for heartbreak, which is peine amour. Yeah, I've got all kinds of playlists.
All of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, where do we go next?
Okay, are you ready? I think I'm going to flip back to the first set of questions that I sent you. If you were a car, which one would you be and why? This is the dumbest question I have ever seen, and I love questions. But if you were a car, which one would you be and why? In this article, it says I love a silly question. I would call this a stupid question.
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a silly question. Like, yeah. Oh, if I were a car, what would I be and why? I feel like I would be something vintagey. Seems like I don't know. I'm just thinking, honestly, I'm working backwards on this question. Like I'm working from like my personality to build out a car. Like I don't have a car that I'm then explaining back into. So something vintagey, something with like, I wanted to say something like small, compact to live and drive in the city. But then I was also like, I come with a lot of things. Like I need to be able to like bring my books along and my records, and I like to have like pretty things. So it's got to be a cool color, nothing too bright. Something like, I don't know, like a pea green kind of, like thinking of a vintagey car color. that I can, like, you know, look good in with any outfit I would wear, right, or whatever. It needs to have a little, like, dog car seat in it, so George can be in the car with me. Yeah, and I think all of those lend to my strengths. I need my books for a learner and my space, and it needs to be aesthetically pleasing for my adaptability, something more old school and vintagey for my context. So, yeah, all the things.
This was the question that I was excited about asking you. Is this question number 4 or 5? Where are we on the math? It doesn't matter. What do you think is the best bookstore in the city and why?
I saw that question and I was like, so the explanation, I actually was going to bring up this question because the explanation for this was like, if you see, because it's supposed to be like dating, like early dating questions, right? Like it was like, if you see books in their profile. And and because it's all like basically catering questions to like their interests, not like what do you like to do, but like if you see that they do this, asking specifically about that. So, and then I was like, if someone were to ask me this question, I might actually physically swoon. Like,
I also love that word. I've been using that word a bunch lately. Like when you have swoony moments.
Yeah, I would swoon. I actually, so with somebody that I dated, we had a running joke around like the perfect date and like what would the perfect date be? Did we talk about this last episode?
A little bit, I think.
A little bit, yeah. So my like, and he didn't want me to tell him because he wanted to be able to figure it out and just do it for me. Like we're gonna go on this date dressed like this and then it'd just be my perfect date. And like literally my perfect date is going to my favorite bookstore, picking out books for each other, and then like going to a cafe and reading after. So, but to answer the original question, number 1, if someone asked me that question, but number 2, they actually answered that question. My favorite in DC is a place called Kramer's. And because they have a little bit of everything, it's locally owned. It's like Institution and DuPont Circle. And the best thing about it is they actually have a little cafe in the back of the bookstore. So you can just get your book and then get your book for each other and then like read it together right at the cafe. And they have cocktails in the evenings and then they have like breakfast and brunch during the daytime. So a little bit of everything.
It's Kramer's with a K.
Kramer's with a K, yes.
In DC.
Yep.
Just making a little note here.
That was question 2. When you said 4 or 5, I was like, what, in the next set? Are we doing 5 again for this next set?
Yes.
Okay. That was the after the first question. You were like, is that 4 or 5? And I'm like, so you just asked me the second question.
Math is hard.
Okay.
What holidays are important to you?
Communally, Christmas, family, rituals. Personally, birthday, New Year for the turning over of the season. So, yeah.
If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?
Only one thing?
Only one thing. And let's preface this. By the way, all of these, we should probably link these questions somewhere to the show notes. Yeah. But this is where the question is explained. Here you'll learn more about their personality. We want to make sure that when we're dating someone who's self-aware, but also aware of what's going on in the world and has somewhat of an idea of how we could potentially make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good one. A really good one to ask. I think we would solve a lot of the problems that I would like to solve. Like immediately I'm like systemic racism and income inequality and distribution of wealth, like the effects of imperialism and colonialism. And I feel like we would solve a lot of those things if everyone inherently was selfless. So I think if I were to pick one thing, I would want to pick that every individual person's level of selflessness is larger than their ego. And I feel like that would solve a lot of problems.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Wow. So many ways.
That was 4.
How did you choose to live where you are living now?
Oh my my gosh. I saw that one. I love that question. I chose where I'm living because I felt compelled to follow my passion and purpose, continue my learning, and share that knowledge with people via a PhD. And the best fit in the best program, in the best place imaginable I thought I could live was here in DC.
Okay, so I want to explain what they say about this question. If you see that they've moved to Florida and maybe they have a few photos of themselves enjoying the beach, ask what brought them there. Be curious if there's something on their profile that they mentioned that seems important to them. So I think how you described, I mean, it's an integrity-driven decision as to where you're living now.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Beautiful.
And I feel like that's there are a lot of people who, I mean, just especially my generation who are transplants. And DC is a city of transplants in general, but a lot of people that, given technology and travel and accessibility, the fact that we're delaying these adulthood steps of like settling down, there's a lot of people in my age group that choose willingly to move someplace for career, education, and then even if they want to forever live in their home state, right, or their home city, right, it's like, I can do this now before I settle down, quote unquote. So, I feel like there's definitely a lot in the choice of where they choose to do that.
These questions are good, and I like that in this article they give the why behind why this question is good.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. You picked some of the ones that I was excited about. What do you think is the best bookstore in the city and why? Mostly for my own selfish reasons. Next time I go to Denver.
This is such a sad... Tattered Cover was just recently purchased by Barnes & Noble for a measly $1.8 million.
Oh.
Which makes me sad in all sorts of ways. But they have a multitude. There's a Tattered Cover even in the airport. But the one that I love is on Colfax, and it's giant and huge, and you can just dawdle. And the location it's in neighborhood-wise, you're right across from City Park. It's just kind of this beautiful sort of... Denver's an interesting city because I think people assume it's very, like we're all going to go hike, or let's all go to a show at Red Rocks, or, everybody here smokes weed, sort of, whatever that is that you make assumptions around Colorado or around Denver. There's such a city aesthetic that not a lot of people, unless you immerse yourself in it, can know. And if you experience Tattered Cover, I feel like you get part of that. Across the street's a great music venue too, and there's really cool boutiques and shops and restaurants like right in this little hub.
I love that. What is keeping you excited these days?
I am loving new experiences and learning. So dating a civil engineer is teaching me a lot about the world. So yesterday I spent part of my day at the South Platte River, where one of his projects, the team was just kind of celebrating. They're getting close to completion. So they've got one section done and there's more sections of the river. But people come out to us and they do what they call river surfing. And so this project, the waterway, is designed, and he's working on projects all over, not just here in Denver, but that just happened to be one that was here that we could see. So I've been learning about all these, like what goes into what we get to experience recreationally that people have no idea about. So I'd say I'm learning a lot about the world, and I'm excited about the things I'm learning about the world through the lens of someone else.
That's awesome. What is your relationship with your name?
Oh, well, Allison is the name given to me by my adoptive parents. My birth name was Camille. I did not know that until I met my biological parents. My adoptive name is Allison, and I was named Alllyson. It was named after June Allison, who was an actress in the 40s. I just recently toured a townhome apartment complex that is called The Allison, based after a movie that June Allison was in. So, talk about connectedness, spelled the same way, Alllyson. But yes, my relationship to my name, I have had 2 actually given to me, and I feel like that's kind of an interesting part of me and a big component to my story. So if it was a question that I was being asked on a dating app, it would be something that's super important to me, that someone knows and understands the complexity and importance of my family dynamic.
Okay. If you could change one thing in the world, what would it be and why?
I loved your response about selflessness. Empathy. Like if it was just a superpower and a skill that everyone could gain, glean, have, to just have the broader viewpoint that everyone is struggling with something. I also would love for most humans to assume positive intent. That, like, really, a lot of people are not waking up in the morning to wreck you.
Yeah.
So I'd say, to change, it'd be hard to choose one thing, but I feel like the ripple effects of that, most importantly, probably would be sense of hope. If I could just instill hope in every human, I feel the ripple effects of that would be broad.
So good. Okay, last question. What are some of your plans this year?
My word of the year is direction. My website is about to launch. I'm now this month 1 year into my solo adventure of being a consultant full-time and owning my own business full-time. And I'm trying to really embrace that and get in front of the busyness of it, because it's gone wildly better than I expected. So getting to a place of feeling more ownership and direction.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Now, some of these, I feel like I'm going to go back to the other one, which is a little bit going slightly deeper.
Okay.
I preface that by saying you can choose not to answer.
I really appreciate that. Okay.
Yes. All right.
I was not aware of those rules when I answered before we got to the dream question.
How do you cope when you're upset?
Lots of ways, in unhealthy and healthy ways. In the best of all worlds, my healthy response is like, I know I need to move and not stew in it. So get out and go for a walk, go to the gym, play with George for a bit, something like that. Huge thing for me is I spend all my time by myself, so social connection. So like going for a happy hour with someone, sometimes I just, maybe not as healthy, just totally disassociate and just binge out on TV and just pretend like my problems that are stressing me out don't exist. So, yeah.
Fair.
Yep.
Fair.
Yep.
What does retirement look like to you?
Stop. As some people on the podcast know, I do not want to retire. I would like to die in my office chair, quite literally. And that sounds probably very morbid, but it really comes from the intent and the passion and the commitment to love what I do so much that I never want to stop doing it. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Gosh, some of these are hard. Like, I don't even want to throw them out there too, because I feel like
you can do it. I can always plead the fifth.
Yeah, you can edit. Who are your role models?
Who are my role models? I mean, I really look more to mentors than role models. I feel like when sometimes people like say people like personal to them, but I feel like when people like think role models, usually it's like idols, like people you never meet, people that are, so I more so look to people that I really admire. but also that I like know personally. And so I think of like, especially like my professors from undergrad who've just like been so important to like helping me get where I'm at today. I think about you. I think about like so many people I've encountered throughout my life. My spiritual mentor in like middle school and high school, who was just so formative to like helping me understand my values and commitments as a person. So when I think of role models, like I prefer to think of like mentors like that.
What's your best quality?
I think my best quality is that I'm always curious, continually curious, always wanting to learn and grow and never content with stagnation.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Yes, my competitiveness. I hate it. I'm a sore loser, and I really, really, really don't like that.
But we're not
even going to qualify it. It is what I would want to change about myself. It is always the thing I want to change about myself. It gets me into trouble. It makes me upset, and I know when it's happening, and I can do nothing to stop it.
Okay, so this is from the Very Well question list, and these are the more deep and meaningful questions. They don't give the explanation as to why that'd be a good question to ask. Yeah. However, I do think what you're naming is, hey, here's a watch out. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to sit down and have a friendly game of Monopoly and I flip the board, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it gives great watch out to like, here's something you should know so that you don't take it personally.
Yep.
I think that was 5. Was that 5?
That was 5 in my count too.
I'm not counting on my fingers or anything.
It was 5 in I believe. So.
Okay. Okay.
What's your worst habit?
Oh, jeez. Like, I have 500 of these. Overthinking.
Okay, that's it. Your worst. You have to pick one.
Overthinking.
You have to pick one.
Overthinking. 100%.
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
That would make me 55. 5 years from now, I will be 55.
Okay.
It's just startling. I think I'll be in home ownership. Yeah, I do. I think I'll be in home. That is a big deal for the nomad here. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think I'll be in some aspect of home ownership. Let's just put it that way. I think I will probably have 1, if not 2 children married. And it's quite possible I could be the G word.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's quite possible. So if we're being fair, I was kind of like, I hope you avoid that question. If we're being fair and real, which will be great for me to listen back, I believe that that's probably some of the things I see myself doing. I do not see myself as a typical G word. Yeah. And the G word being grandma. Yeah. I don't see myself as a typical. Yeah. My G word name that I've named myself is Saucy. So if you...
Saucy? Like that's
Saucy. That's my grandma name. I've chosen it already so that no one gets in front of it.
Okay.
And my children seem to think that they will choose or their children will choose what my G word name is. But no, I will choose. That's how this goes. Yeah. So if they're spending time with Saucy, I think it's going to look very different than it probably is going to look like with the other grandmas or grandpas. Yeah. So yeah, in 5 years, a whole lot could be happening.
A whole lot could be happening. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Different season for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced a life-altering moment that changed your perspective?
In July of 1995, I found out I was having a baby. And that instantaneously changed my view of the world.
Wow. Cool.
Well, I hope that was the right math, because if Lauren listened, she just...
I know. I thought about that, and I'm like, she's 2 years younger than me? I thought, like, she was only 1 year younger than me. Okay. But, okay, What is a skill or quality you would like to develop in yourself?
Confidence. Just inner compass, confidence. Like, don't overthink it. You just do.
Okay. Love that. Last one. What is your idea of happiness?
So I've been looking at the research actually around, it was just the most recent on being. I think it was around perseverance, but like, what is a good life? What is a good day? And if I was to map out a good day, or what a happy day, where happiness is if I am contributing to the betterment of others. So the reason I talk to people on the plane is because the science tells me that they will leave more engaged and more hopeful. So my definition of happiness is I am contributing to the world being better. And sometimes that's me being quiet. Sometimes that's me asking a question. Sometimes that's me just trying to gift well.
That's great.
Was that number 5?
That was number 5.
All right, Tess, this is the last round. I'm going into the questions for navigating awkward silence.
Okay. There's only 10. Do we go do 3 each?
Let's do 3 each.
Okay.
Also, maybe we should have started with these.
Yeah, these are the lightest things. We're ending these. Oh, gosh.
This is Freaky Friday. If you could switch lives with someone for a day, who would you switch with?
The president.
The current?
Whoever is the current president. The amount of executive orders that I would put in place for a day, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Let's go here. See, this is where I feel like this is important information on the date. It's not because you want to be Joe Biden.
No, not at all.
It's because you want to. It's the role.
It's the power. It's the power that he comes with, and what I would do with that if given a day.
So yeah. I think, switching lives, and with the preface, with the you want their
whole life. I would not care for probably his bad back problems, and but that's that part too. But
the noggin.
Yeah.
So Sean, I'm going to add this in because it's. I mean, let's be funny, okay? Yep. Sean now refers to me and my I can't remember anything. My menopause brain as Biden brain is what he calls it. He does.
Not wrong. So.
Yeah, he does. All right. Oh okay. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead,
Malcolm X.
Well, that was quick, and that was really very telling about what is important to you. And on it, so if this is on a dating app or a date or an awkward silence question, it leads to so much. Mm-hmm. I dig this last section.
Yeah.
And if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Oh, top destination for me forever has always been Bali. So, Bali.
Is that in the works, in the plans, in the dreams, in the nexting?
It's in the dreams. It needs to be, dreams without plans are just wishful thinking. So it needs to be there needs to be little plans behind it. But I'm contemplating it for my when I get my PhD, big celebratory. That's the thing with me. I love to travel. I'm comfortable traveling a lot of places on my own that other people aren't. I think I have not traveled anywhere in Asia. And so I think because I don't have rudimentary skills regarding language in any sort of Asian adjacent language, I think that's one of those, I'm debating whether or not I want to do a group trip, join a group type excursion, or just find someone who's willing to go with me just for a little bit more security. So yeah, but I'm thinking there's no concrete plans, but there's a lot of things milling in my head around it. And I think I'm going to try and make it happen for my celebratory end of my PhD trip.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That would be definitely a great way to celebrate.
Yeah. If you could invent one thing right now, what would it be?
I want to be able to take my I want to be able to take my thoughts and translate them quicker. So like something that could read my brain without me having to do the work of articulating what's happening in my brain. Just read it.
Yeah. Okay.
And because I get really caught up in all the words and I give too many extra words. And if it's something that's highly emotional for me, I just completely screw it up. Like then I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel emotion. So then I just like jumble up words.
Okay.
I don't know what to call that invention, but.
Thought translation device. Okay. I want to qualify this question. I'm going to ask, if you had 3 wishes, what would you ask for? And you can't ask for more wishes.
This is hard.
I know.
My most important wish is for the contentment and peace and happiness of my children. I wish for that all the time and try to do as much as I can to support that. Confidence. Just that, like, I'm going looking at townhomes, okay? I wish I had this sort of like, yes, this is it. I don't have that. I have both intuition and doubt and curiosity and input and all the things that make it really, really hard for me to have just like natural confidence. I would wish for natural confidence. And the third, world peace sounds really ridiculous, but I want that for so many reasons.
Yeah.
It's existential. It's everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
I'd also wish that more people understood what I started with by saying that Van Halen is the only Van Halen.
Yeah, I'm like, didn't know there were more than one, so okay. That was 2, right?
Yes.
And I would like to know, if you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who would you pick?
My dad.
Oh my gosh.
My dad. Yeah, that's easy. I imagine it often. Yeah, I would just ask him about his childhood. I would ask him about what he hoped for me. I would ask him about what he thought of the world through his lens. I would ask him about what it was like to be in the Army and serve during Vietnam. I would ask him about what it was like to fall in love with my mom. I would ask him about his brother. I would ask him about farming. I would ask him about racing cars and about his temper that I've heard about. I have all these questions that I would love to answer. I don't know if I've spoken to this on the podcast or not, but I've started EMDR therapy, and it's been really remarkable. I've never really done a prescriptive kind of tool like this, and so it's given me these opportunities to have sensory awareness of what I remember and some of the things that I've blocked. So the image of my dad is more clear to me now since I started EMDR than it was.
Wow.
So yeah, I would definitely want to have dinner with him.
I love that. Awesome. Those 3.
Well, I feel like this was a good start to helping our listeners think of ways that they could start their holiday weekend. They could walk into a uncomfortable, awkward situation, or maybe they're dating, or maybe they have a significant other, or maybe they've been married for 50 years. These are still great get to know you better questions. Thanks, George, for your input.
Sorry, he totally agrees here. The main great questions.
I think these are some great conversation starters, and definitely not as deep as we went last time, but a fun Genn and Millie to switch it up for a bit.
Absolutely. And I would highly encourage people, if you are dating, I'll put both of the links to these in the show notes, but I think the 25 questions, the one we grabbed the second set of questions from is from Women's Health Magazine, just as a location of where that's from. But there were a handful of questions that we talked about, some of them on the last episode, but like 3 deal breakers, 3 things you find attractive. What are you looking for on this app? How important are certain things in your relationship? What's the ideal situation for your life in 3 years? And I think like I really appreciate the way that they describe these questions and like provide evidence for why like these are helpful or important from different people. Particularly like these sorts of questions that I just find are so necessary to outline like expectations and desires. And I think to the constant swiping game, like you can get a lot of numbers if you're very vague about what you're looking for, right? And one of the people in here was like, you should be looking for quality over quantity, especially if you're like looking for a relationship, right? You're looking for one person to like partner with. And so I thought that was good. Those are some good questions. So okay, so we'll link both these in the show notes, but also pick a wild card question and send it to us. Respond. We'd love to hear one of the ones we did or one of the ones you found interesting that we didn't do in these lists of questions. So without further ado, we want to thank you all for tuning in to episode 119 of Genn and Millie. If you enjoyed today's conversation, consider sharing this episode with a friend. To interact with us and share your responses to any and all of the questions we posed, best way to get in contact with us is by interacting with us on Instagram. We are at Genn and Millie. That's at GENNANDMILLIE. Until next time.